Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for this afternoon, Mr. Ramzy Khoury, our journalist. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ramzy.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on this edition of Arab Affairs, and of course a very happy Eid to you and to your family.
Adha Mubarak to everybody and the listeners.
Thank you very much, sir. Now let me start by asking you, still on the 253rd day, we are seeing continued Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip, and still Palestinians falling prey to this aggression by the Israelis. How do you see the latest developments on the ground? The latest toll is by the Gazan Health Ministry. The Israeli genocide war now has killed over 37,100 people so far.
Well, it is ongoing. We haven't had one day of peace in Gaza. We have also another atrocity that is going on. We have over 40 children who have died because of hunger and dehydration.
Yes.
And therefore, we are looking at a toll that is coming out of a weapon of mass destruction called starvation. And this is what's happening now. I can't even describe how horrific it is this Adha for the Palestinians who are living in Gaza.
Absolutely, Mr. Ramzy. Now, what happened to, the latest developments with regards to the ceasefire? And over the last week, we saw addresses by the American President Joe Biden. We saw promises of an incoming ceasefire and a stopping of the Israeli aggression and some sort of agreement being reached. Where do they stand on this development?
Well, there has never been a proper offer put on the table. And the reason is because when they're talking ceasefire, they are talking ceasefire for a very short period of time. A ceasefire that would allow an exchange, a limited exchange of prisoners, and then the war may resume. And this is where the problem is. The issue is not in the intricate details that have been put forward, such as the number of prisoners, or the phases of the deal. They're talking about 3 phases. That's not the issue. The issue is that unless any deal that is put on the table describes the details of a permanent ceasefire and the total withdrawal of Israeli occupation troops outside of Gaza, which would mean, in effect, the cease of all of the mayhem that is going on, the genocide that is going on, the starvation that is going on. Unless that is put on the table, there is no offer that has been put on the table. This is where the problem is. And when the Americans say that it is the Palestinians who are delaying, this is also fascinating. We have not heard Netanyahu or anybody in his government come out and say that they accept the deal that the Americans describe as an Israeli deal, which is fascinating. This is not the first time that the Americans put forward the deal that say that this is an offer from Israel, and when the Palestinians accept it, then the Israelis are the first to wriggle out of it. But we haven't even heard the Israelis come out and say, yes, this is basically our deal and we accept it and we're willing to commit to it. And there is no guarantee. What has been put on the table is simply the first phase, a certain number of prisoners are exchanged. And then the second phase, they will negotiate on a ceasefire, but the war will return if anything goes wrong with the negotiations.
Yes.
So basically, Israel can actually do a limited exchange, take out some of their prisoners of war out of Gaza, ease their political stress inside of their own country, and then they can go back to war, and they can go back to killing Palestinian civilians. So this is where the glitch is. This is where the problem is. It's very unfortunate. I mean, the minute that the details of the deal came out and we looked at them, we saw that there is no deal there. Now, what we've seen with the Palestinians is that they said, yes, we absolutely accept. We're looking at it in a positive manner. We accept, but there are a couple of minor issues that have to be incorporated, which is a guarantee for a permanent ceasefire and the withdrawal of Israeli troops outside of Gaza. So this is where the problem is. The other thing that is totally ridiculous, that is in that deal, or what has been submitted, is that aid to Gaza, aid to the civilians in Gaza,
yes,
who are not engaged in war, are actually related to this deal. But this is a political security deal. The civilians do not have anything to do with it. So to come and say that the Palestinians are starving and will continue to starve unless Hamas accepts the deal, for example, which is something that we're hearing lately, this is blackmail. As a matter of fact, it's not just blackmail, it's a war crime. And it's a very clear war crime. You cannot take the whole Palestinian population of Gaza as a hostage in order to force a certain party to accept what another party wants to impose on it.
Absolutely.
So that doesn't work that way.
Absolutely, Mr. Ramzy. And another issue that I wanted to discuss with you, of course, the World Health Organization, the WHO, is decrying the escalating health crisis as well in the occupied West Bank, alongside several areas that are under siege and under attack. Where is the international community from, this outcry by the deteriorating health conditions, the lack of accessibility, the lack of medication, the lack of health facilities, the lack of basic needs for the health sector?
Absolutely, and it's become a total disaster. And I'll explain. Not only do they not have all of the medicines and gears, and most hospitals in Gaza are out of service anyway. They have been totally destroyed by the Israeli occupation forces. But if in the past couple of days, the children who were taken to the hospital, hospital Kataib Shuhada al-Aqsa, for example, that is still operative in the center of Gaza. Starving children were taken there, and the hospital couldn't even save them. The hospital is lacking the most basic of materials. The most basic of materials, such as saline, such as nutrition, such as they could not save them. We had a child die only yesterday at the hospital. The hospital could not save that child. So we are at a point where it's a total catastrophe on every end. We have so many people who are totally homeless. We have children who have lost their families. Yesterday, a child was found. Until today, they don't even know his name. The child is not able to speak. They brought him a pad and a pencil to draw, thinking maybe he will be able to explain. And what he drew a prison and Israeli soldiers. And then they realized that this is a child who was actually taken hostage by the Israeli army, was imprisoned. The child arrived totally dehydrated and starving, and the child has been abused. The child no longer speaks, and we don't know how many of these cases are there, and therefore we are looking at. However you look at it, you are seeing a catastrophe, a human catastrophe going on before our eyes. And unless something is actually done about it and Israel is forced to stop, this is going to continue.
Absolutely. Mr. Ramzy, we just recently saw a summit held in Jordan, and of course President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Jordanian king, as well as the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, invited and hosted this very important summit on the situation in Gaza and for the Palestinians. And we heard many nations decrying the situation. All the attendees that were participating spoke about the situation in the Gaza Strip and how it has become unacceptable to humanity, not just breaking international laws, etc. What else is needed for the international community to take action on the ground?
The international community, including during that very important conference, and the conference was attended by delegations that were over 80-some countries, representing 80-some countries.
Yes.
And therefore it was a huge conference. The conference is ready. Those delegates were all ready to submit aid to the Palestinians. The problem is not about aid. The problem is about aid coming into Palestine.
Indeed.
Aid coming into Gaza. And this is where the problem is. Israel has to be forced to allow aid to come in, whether the aid is food or medical materials.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't happen, then we are going to see a huge toll. So the world, if you like, is ready to aid the Palestinians immediately. The only party that is not ready to do so is Egypt. And unfortunately, of course not Egypt, is Israel.
Yes.
Unfortunately, whereas Ma'bar Rafah, the Rafah crossing of Egypt, is the most important crossing into Gaza, it is now occupied on the Palestinian side by the Israeli occupation forces.
Yes.
And therefore the Palestinians are now totally under the mercy of the Israeli occupation forces, and with the protection of the United States of America. And therefore the Egyptians and all of the other countries are trying to push on the USA that the USA must force Israel to open its border crossings and allow for the aid to come in. Mm-hmm. There is another issue that we need to note of, which is today's news. Mm-hmm. The Americans have declared that they are removing their floating pier from the Gaza shores, and they are moving it to Ashdod. So they are moving it to Israel. Mm. So they're removing it from Gaza and taking it to Israel. Now, and the reason why they did that is because it is not a sustainable project, and we've said that from day one. What's the idea of building a floating pier on the Gazan shores in order to bring in aid? Aid can come in very easily and smoothly through the Rafah border crossing, and from the other border crossings as well. Mm-hmm. And there was absolutely no need to go ahead and build a whole costly pier on the shores of Gaza in order to bring the aid in. Mm-hmm. And now the Americans are pulling it out. So it's either one of two. Option A is that whatever purpose the pier was built for has been met, and now they no longer need it there. Mm-hmm. Or option B, it is not sustainable, it is not secure. Mm-hmm. We've heard about an accident that happened in which American soldiers were injured on the pier. Mm-hmm. But we also saw what the pier was used for when the Israelis supposedly liberated 4 of their prisoners, and all the group that went in and conducted the military action that killed over 280 Palestinians. Yes. In order to liberate 4 Israeli bracket hostages. They came from the pier. They came from the pier, and they were playing and acting as if they were an aid convoy. And then when they got hold of the 4 prisoners, these people were taken out from in front of the pier in a helicopter, just in front of the pier. So maybe the pier was for that purpose. Maybe the whole pier scenario was for that purpose. And now they no longer need it because they realized that their operation, or that operation, has not only liberated 4 Israelis, it killed 3 Israeli hostages in addition, and it killed hundreds of Palestinian civilians.
Absolutely. Finally, Mr. Ramzy, just to wrap up, what, in your opinion, needs to happen immediately for the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the Gaza Strip to be alleviated as soon as possible, with the situation extremely dire on the ground?
In reality, we all know that unless there is a permanent ceasefire and the Israeli troops would withdraw out of Gaza, any trickle of aid that comes in will be halted by Israel again and again and again. And this is what Israel has been doing all throughout the past 9 months. And therefore what we need to do now is to be able to reach a point. There is no question that aid has to come in.
Yes.
We are seeing starvation on the ground. Aid has to come in immediately. And Israel cannot impede that aid. And Israel needs to be challenged by the USA and all of Western Europe, as well as the rest of the world,
yes,
on this issue. And this has to happen immediately. But what we really need is for Israel to actually withdraw out of Gaza ASAP. And they need to withdraw away from the Rafah crossing so that it can actually continue flowing back into Gaza again. And therefore, unfortunately, we sometimes hear positive notes coming out of the American administration, but it is very clear that America is not willing to force anything on Israel.
yes.
The only thing that America is giving Israel in practical terms are the weapons and all of the ammunition that the Israelis are using to kill Palestinians. So we have a very big problem on that front as well.
Absolutely. Right, on that note, I have to wrap up. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Mr. Ramzy Khoury, our journalist and our guest for this afternoon. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and for joining us on today's edition of Arab Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today's episode. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.